In Graham Greene's novel, The Power and the Glory, a priest is about to be executed by the anti-Catholic junta in the ruling 19th century Mexico. Mr. Greene describes the whiskey priest's last hours. He writes, "When he woke up, it was dawn. He woke with a huge feeling of hope, which suddenly and completely left him at the first sight of the prison yard. It was the morning of his death. He crouched on the floor with the empty brandy flask in his hand, trying to remember an act of contrition. He prayed, 'O God, I am sorry and beg pardon for all my sins, crucified, worthy of thy dreadful punishments.' He was confused. His mind was on other things. It was not the good death for which one always prayed. He caught sight of his own shadow on the cell wall. It had a look of surprise and grotesque unimportance. What a fool he had been to think that he was strong enough to stay while others fled. What an impossible fellow I am, he thought, and how useless. I have done nothing for anybody. I might just as well have never lived." He felt only an immense disappointment because he thought he had to go to God empty-handed, with nothing at all done. It seemed to him at that moment that it would have been quite easy to have been a saint. It would have only needed a little self-restraint and a little courage. He felt like someone who had missed happiness by seconds at an appointed place. He knew now that at the end, there was only one thing that counted: to be a saint. He did not, I would add, realize the good, the love, the compassion, the mercy he showed to his persecuted flock by his ministry. Very much like the young priest in the Diary of a Country Priest by Bernanos, who died at a very young age of stomach cancer, who had ministered to his obstinate village parishioners, who he thought he had accomplished nothing, that he too was going to God with empty hands, in spite of the beautiful ministry he had given to his people. But he ended his life with these last words as he breathed his last: "All is grace, all is grace." We don't think of ourselves either as potential saints. We can't help. I need to get out of the sun. I'm a WASP on my mother's side and an Irish Catholic on my father's side, so I am cursed with Irish skin. and the fact is that one time a wonderful Jewish convert named Robert Lax asked Thomas Merton, the famous monk who died in 1968, a great spiritual writer of the 20th century, "What is your vocation, Thomas?" And Thomas said, "I don't know yet." And Robert Lax, while still a Jew, replied, "Your vocation and my vocation is to be a saint." And I think this reason is we can't help but feel that extraordinary holiness of the saints we read about is well beyond us, and the lives we live in the times and places we live them are not like the lives of the saints we find in books. But sainthood is as simple as the condemned priest in Graham Greene's novel, finally comes to understand as he faces the firing squad that morning of his death. And what the young priest comes to realize in his last breath, all is grace, all is grace. The resolve not to come to God empty-handed, but to come before God at the end of our lives with offerings of justice and mercy, of peace-building and compassion. Small, ordinary, perhaps, but all our sincerest attempts to mirror the love of God in which we were created. As the first letter of John reminds us, God is love, and those who live in God love as God loves, after his example. And again, Paul says to us, God has first loved us, let us love God. We love God by loving one another. Today we celebrate all the saints who now dwell with God, both the heralded saints of the church calendar and the most unknown saints whose presence have blessed our lives, those who have ministered to us and have been good to us in our lives and have gone before us. And I think of the people who have died of COVID-19. Every week, at the end of the news hour on PBS, on KCET at 3 p.m., and KOCE at 6 p.m. when I watch the news, the wonderful woman journalist mentions the names and something about each and every one of these people who have died that week in our nation of COVID-19. And pictures are put up on the television screen of these people, our fellow American citizens who have gone before us, who in the ordinary, everyday lives they led, they showed love and compassion and justice and concern for others. Grocery store clerks, cashiers, medical workers, hotel keepers, hotel maids, all grocery workers, medical personnel, all showed the love and concern in their lives for others. And even if they didn't know they were living the Beatitudes which are not the Ten Commandments, but the Beatitudes are the Christian plan of living. Ten Commandments are for the whole human race, but especially for Christians. And there are many, many non-Christians who live those Beatitudes, our fellow citizens who have gone before us to God. Let our prayer be this All Saints' Day, that we may seek to be among their company one day, that the object and purpose of our lives, too, is to come before God at the end, not empty-handed, but with the humble offering of a life lived in the spirit of the Beatitudes.